There you go.
Thank you very much, Declan, and hello again to anyone I didn't greet at the beginning. Nice to get the opportunity to talk to you again, and well done on all the good work you've produced so far because the results have been very high. So well done. Okay, so what we're going to do this morning is I'm going to start by going through the mock paper which I sent out before Christmas, okay, which hopefully all of you had a chance to have a look at. Even if you didn't, there's no need to panic. This morning will still be useful for you, okay? So I'm going to go through the mock paper, do that for I suppose maybe the guts of 30 minutes, or maybe a little bit more. Then I'll put away the mock paper. I'll take out the real one. Only I'll be able to see it, I'm afraid. But I'll give you some guidance and some pointers on what directions to go in and what get your brains going in terms of what sections you might want to focus on ahead of next week. Okay. Um, so on the mock paper, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through the short multiple choice questions, okay? Because by the time we get to the end of it, the session will be over and we won't have any time to do the longer questions. So what I will do on the short questions is I'm going to send them out. I have the email loaded up and ready to go. I will send it out when my session is over, and you can go through it. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email me back. I'll be keeping a close eye on the email between now and next Saturday. So you can email me if you have any questions or concerns on that. But that's what I'm going to do in terms of the short questions. So what I'm going to focus on now is I'm going to focus on the four longer questions, give you some guidance as to how to answer those questions if those type of questions were to come up next week. Okay, because chances are they certainly won't be the same, but there will be similar ones, and I'll talk a little bit more about how similar they might be or may not be at the once I've finished the mock paper. Okay. So the first question that appeared on the mock paper is write a welcome letter for a business to send to another business. Okay, and I'll show you the letter that I propose that we would send out. It's in the notes, but I'll bring that up on the screen now in a minute. But just to first of all give you some guidance, because I'll do this for all four of the questions, where you would find the answer. If you saw that question, you didn't know where to get the answer from, there is a sample welcome letter on which I'm going to show you now in a minute on page 59 of module one. Okay. So the sample welcome letter is on page 59 of module one, and I will call that up. I hate sharing live because it regularly takes a couple of goes, but just give me one moment and I will, all going well, I will share the right documents. Okay, you guys able to see some black writing with some white space behind it? If anyone could give me a thumbs up, that would be great.
Yes.
Yep, terrific. Thank you very much. Thanks, Christina.
Yeah.
Um, so let me see. So this is the sample letter, and I've put some couple of bullet points in because that's a reminder for me to talk. So the sample letter is, dear so and so, your new account has just been opened, and we look forward to doing business with you. My name is Paul, and I will be looking after your account. So that's a very, high level, generic, friendly opening statement, but there is actually already a hidden point that is in there. Okay, so it says, my name is Paul Daly, and I will be looking after your accounts. Okay, there have been times over the years in my time in credit management and collections where accounts have gone late, and we have eventually reached somebody who has talked to us about the account, and they say, "Oh, I had a concern, or I had a question, or I had a query. I didn't pay the invoice in time, but I didn't know who to talk to." Okay, all right. So we are clearly putting out there in the very first paragraph. Okay, my name is Paul, and I'm going to be looking after your account. Okay, so what that does is that removes not a very common excuse, but an excuse nonetheless that people may use in terms of delaying payments. Okay, so you're clearly calling out, I'm Paul and I'm going to be looking after your account. So if you have problems, you talk to me. Okay, we move on to the second paragraph. Your invoices will be sent to wherever. We understand you have or you do not have a purchase order system in place, and I will ensure your requirements are compiled with this are complied with at this end. Okay, so what you're doing there is again you are removing a couple of excuses. You're saying, okay, invoices can be sent. There's no point in sending invoices out by post if in reality the company want them all coming in by email so they can process them through some system. The reverse also is not ideal. You don't necessarily necessarily want to be emailing all the invoices if for whatever reason the company needs hard copies of them in order to pay them. Okay. Because they're then going to have to print them out. That potentially leads to, they're going to have to find time to do that. That potentially then leads to a delay. Okay. So you're immediately saying, okay, we're going to be sending you the invoices. Here's the address you're going to be sending. If there is something wrong, so if the invoices are going to Cork and they need to be going to Dublin or vice versa, that is an opportunity. It's not necessarily an opportunity the customer is going to take, but it is an opportunity for the customer to say, oh, no, hang on a sec. There's something wrong there that will in time delay payment. Okay. You're also calling out what is one of the most common reasons for invoices not getting paid, POs or lack of POs. So, there are certain companies, probably primarily small ones, who do not require a purchase order system. Okay, it's an office of 5 people, so if the invoice arrives in, someone say, "Yeah, I remember ordering that, so I approve the invoice for payments." Okay. There's no point in relying on I remember that type system in a company of 1,000 or more. Okay. You have to have some sort of more formal system in place. So what you're doing there is you are calling out, okay, we know you have a PO system and we will make sure a PO appears on the invoice. We know that you do not have a PO system. Therefore, we won't be putting a PO. So that then removes the excuse. Somebody shouldn't then be coming back and saying, well, hang on, where's the PO? So, well, hang on, we called out, and this shouldn't be the first time that you do it, but you are confirming we know that you do not have a PO system in place, and therefore we're not going to be putting one on the invoice. If the person who receives the letter is responsible and reading it carefully and wants to adopt a right first time approach, if anything in it is wrong, they should be coming back to you and saying, okay, well, just to be clear, we do have the PO system, or just to be clear, the invoices need to go to Cork because we have another office there that deals with accounts payable and not Dublin, or whatever. Okay, but it gives them the opportunity to correct anything that may have broken down in the earlier discussions. Okay. We pride ourselves on the accuracy, timeliness, and clarity of our invoicing. Okay, so that's the third point we're making. Okay, so what we're saying there is we are setting a high bar for ourselves. We're saying, listen, we're going to get these things right. Okay, you may have other suppliers who get these things wrong. We're going to get it right. Okay, your invoice will be right and will be held to a very high standard. Okay, we will deliver the right amount of product. We will do this right. We'll do this. So we're sharing with them. We're not calling it right first time the letter, but we're sharing it with them that, listen, we're going to get things right. Okay, so by implication, we expect you to do the same. And if things go wrong, if we have a very high bar, if things go wrong, it may well be more likely on the customer side than on our side. But we're putting a stake in the ground there, and we're saying we're going to get this right. Okay, so your invoices will be right, your amount of product you receive will be right, the payment terms on the invoices will be right, various things will be right. So as a result, we expect you to take the invoices seriously and follow them. Okay. Should you have any issues or require any additional information to make your job easier, please know that my direct line is the following, and I will do everything I can to help. So again, linking back to the first point that I made there, you will, certainly if you deal with a very large ledger, at some point you will arrive at a scenario where a customer says, okay, there was something wrong, or I had a question, but I didn't know who to talk to. Okay. I'd lost the email address. I didn't know who to contact. I rang reception and I only got voicemail or something like that. I didn't know who to talk to. Okay. What you're saying there is, okay, there is my direct line number. Okay. And it's an opportunity, if you need to, you don't need to keep this letter absolutely as it is there. There is an opportunity there, if it's a case of it's going to a generic email box or a generic phone number, if you want to say, please put for the attention of Paul in the subject line, and that way Paul will see it when it comes into the generic email box. You can put specific instructions there, but you are again removing excuses to say, okay, it's Paul, and here is my direct line number, or here is how to reach me. You're removing excuses later on that customers could potentially use for not paying on time. Our credit terms state clearly what your credit terms are, and you're not going to be putting kind of net 30 or something vague like that. You're going to be saying, we are expecting payment on the 28th of every month for the invoices that were invoiced the month before. So something very clear and concise like that. We look forward to receiving your payment each month on or before that date. So you're confirming the expectation. It's not a kind of generic letter where there's no mention of payment and it's all nice and we're delighted that your customers, there's nothing wrong with it all being nice, but you do also need to have an element of firmness in it that you're expecting, when you deliver a service or product, you expect to be paid. So you're clearly stating, you have whatever amount of time you have to make your payment, but we expect payment on time. All right. That's 0.5. Okay. And is there, I can't remember, is there a 0.6? Sorry, my screen is now freezing. Yes, there is. In response to your request, we are delighted to extend you a line of credit of X. Should you wish to revise this facility at any time, please let me know. I certainly remember from some of my earlier days in credit, there was nothing that got customers and also people within your own organization more riled up than orders that kind of went on hold. You know, the customer was urgently expecting order X and it got stuck in the system because they had exceeded their credit limit, or they were late or whatever. Okay, but what you're doing here is you're reminding them, right? Listen, you've got a line of credit of 10,000, 100,000, a million, whatever it is. But if they are, I mean, they may not be keeping particularly close tabs on exactly what they're billing, but if they are, they would have an idea. Okay, well, how close? Or if they immediately see that the line of credit that's extended is 10K and they say, well, hang on, we're going to be spending 100K a month, we got a problem. It again gives them an opportunity to contact you and say, okay, listen, we need to talk because the line of credit is only 10. We expect to be billing 100, and let's talk about how we make up that remaining 90. Okay. Again, it's giving one more upfront opportunity for them to query or to asking a question. It's a fairly, if you remove the kind of point ones through six from there, the letter kind of reads, and it reads relatively simply, and you wouldn't necessarily, unless you're looking for them, wouldn't necessarily pick out those 6 points. But that's the type of letter that we'd be looking for. So at the minimum, we'd be looking for a copy of that type of letter. We'd also ideally be looking for some of what I've just said, which is, okay, the reason I put that in is this, the reason I put that in. If you're really shooting for high marks, it'd be good to kind of put it at the end, maybe a little short paragraph that says, okay, I asked that, so to achieve this, I asked this to achieve that. Something to give you a bit more insight and to show that you really, really know what it is that you're putting in there. But that's a summary as to how to answer that type of question if it were to come up. Any questions on any of that? No. Okay, very good. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing because that was the one that I wanted to just actually
Sorry,
show you.
Paul,
Yep, go
sorry.
ahead.
Did you just say it was page 59, module one?
Page 59, module one is what
Yeah,
I believe. Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Perfect. All right.
Okay,
Thank
that's right.
you.
Where you should be able to find it. Yep. No worries. Okay. So I'm going to move on to question two, unless there's any more questions. Question two is, what information should be obtained on a new account application form or a new customer information sheet? And I can't remember if I put this in myself or not, but indicate why you require it. Okay. So just repeat that question. What information should be obtained on a new account application form or a new customer information sheet, and indicate why you require it? So I can't remember if we put in why you require it is in the question, but we would be looking for an explanation as to why the things are there. Okay, so to start with a trade credit application, well, first of all, I'll tell you where to get these answers. So these are from module. Sorry, is it module one or module two? Sorry, module one. Just say it there. So these are from module one, and where you will get the answers is they are from page 26 to 37 of the module one notes. That is, if you're dealing with a business to business or a trade application form. So pages 26 to 37 of module one. And if you work more on the consumer side, because the forms are completely different. So if you work more on the consumer side, the consumer examples are on pages 45 to 50. Okay. So we have the trade one first between pages 26 and 37, and then you have the consumer one after between pages 45 and 50. Okay. So that's where you'd find the examples of the forms. Okay. Now, to start with the trade application form, for me, there's lots and lots of things that you can put in to a trade application form, and within reason, there is no such thing as too much information in there. Now, you do need to strike a balance between kind of, having a form that's so long that the customer says, "Oh, Jesus, there's no way I'm completing that," versus kind of one that's too short and the customer completes it in a couple of minutes and says, "Well, that was nice and handy, but you don't have a lot of the information that you really need." So for me, there's three different things that we're really looking out for above all else in a trade credit application form. Okay, so everything that's in there should really tie back to one of these three reasons. Okay, so the first one is credit information. Okay, you're essentially lending money to the customer, so you need to evaluate the risk that you're going to be taking. Okay, so the type of things that you would need to find out and things like that. So, are they a sole trader? Are they a partner? Are they a limited company? What type of business are they? Okay, that's one way of assessing the risk because that determines what you can do in terms of legal proceedings if everything goes wrong. You want to make sure you have the customer's legal name in there. Okay, so again, you're playing devil's advocate. Hopefully, you won't need a lot of this stuff, but you are playing devil's advocate and saying, okay, let's imagine that I do, and the customer is no longer answering my calls because they owe me money. It'd be handy to have this up front. So you're looking for the customer's legal name. You'd want to have an idea how much they want to spend every month. Okay, so the line of credit that we talked about in the first question, we don't completely make that up. We do assess that, but some of it is based on what they propose to spend. Okay, there's no point necessarily giving them a line of credit of 100,000 if they're only going to spend 10 a month. Okay, you might want to give a line of credit of more like 20 or 30,000 if they're going to spend 10 if they're only expecting 10 a month. So you'd be asking them how much are they going to spend, how long are they in business. Okay. If they're in business 20 years, there's a pretty good chance they'll make it to 21. Okay, usually. Okay, if they're in business 1, there's a higher chance of them disappearing before they reach the end of year 2. Okay, so it is a relevant question. Are the premises leased or are they owned? Okay, so could you, if you're really dealing with big money, could you in theory go after the building that they own if they left you high and dry with a large debt? Trade references, things that maybe are in competition for your money. Are they, how many employees do they have? Things that may be in competition with your money. Things that are directly linked in to the risk level that you're going to be taking. Okay, so that's the first type of anything those would be the first type of questions I'd be looking to get into my my trade application form. Okay. Second thing, again, tying into the first question, excuses, okay? Not everyone will pay you on time, okay? Probably no matter how good a job you do, not everyone will pay you on time. Have you done a good job in the application form, of removing the excuses that people might give you, okay? Is the delivery address in there, okay? This is where we're going to deliver the product. This is where we're going to deliver the invoice, okay? You don't want a scenario where, well, sure, hang on, the product ended up in Cork and we need it in Dublin, so you can whistle for it if you think we're going to pay until you get the product. But you want to clearly put the delivery address in there. Where's the product going, if there is a product? Where are the invoices going? Where are the statements going? Okay, you want to put that information in. The famous, do you have a PO system? Okay, yes or no? All right, do you have a PO system? So again, you've got your welcome letter. You now have your before the welcome letter, you will also have had your credit application form. That's two opportunities that people have to kind of say, well, PO system or no PO system. It is the most common reason that I saw for people not paying. It wasn't product not delivered or things like that. It was, where's the PO? Okay, where are we going to send the invoices to? Where are we going to send the statements to? Are we sending them by post? Are we sending them by email? Okay, so all of that should make its way onto the form because all of these are opportunities for things to go wrong if you make assumptions, or if you get it wrong. There are opportunities for things to go wrong, and when things go wrong, payments arrive late. Okay. So that'd be the second thing I'd be looking to put into any trade application form. The third thing would be, let's imagine, again, we're playing devil's advocate, so hopefully you won't need it, but let's imagine for a moment that the 30 days or the 60 days go by and payment has not been received. You want to be able to contact them, okay? There's no point in having the best collectors in the world if they can't contact customer. Best collectors in the world probably will find a way, come hell or high water, of finding them, but let's make the job easier for them. Okay, so do we have a few phone numbers in there? Okay, ideally more than one. Okay, having the reception's phone number is all well and good. If it is an organization genuinely of 5 people, yeah, pretty good chance whoever answers the phone will be able to find the decision maker to get your invoice paid. But again, imagine, I work for a company that's a lot more than 5 people, so best of luck ringing our reception and trying to find who's going to pay your invoice, which is not going to happen. So so you need to have a number of phone numbers in there, number of email addresses. Okay, ideally it's not just accounts payable at I was going to say gmail.com. I suppose probably not going to be that, but ideally it's not just accounts payable at whatevercompany.com. Okay, ideally you'd have a couple of more and maybe some specific ones that maybe you don't use in every case. They're only escalation points, but they are there in case nothing is happening with the accounts payable at whatever.com. So you can construct the credit application form whatever way you wish. There are examples there on pages, as I said, page 26 to 37, and there's explanations of what you might put in, and there's also reasoning in there as to why that similar to what I've just shared as to why they might be in there. So you can do it any way you want. But I would, if a similar question were to come up, I would put in the application form, and I would either right next to putting the name and the phone number and the whatever, give a quick explanation as to why you're looking for it, or have a nice clean credit application form, and then down at the bottom after you've finished it, say, okay, maybe number of the items kind of 1, 2. You are working off computers, so it's a little bit easier than if you were handwriting it. But maybe number the things kind of 1 to 20, and then can say, okay, ask number 1 because of that, ask number 2 because of that, and so on. Let's list out. If you do all of that, you're genuinely shooting for, and you're accurate with it. You are shooting for very close to top marks. Okay. I'll go on to the consumer one in a minute, but which is a little bit different, but well, quite different actually. But are there any questions on the trade one? No. Okay, very good. So on the consumer one, I mean, it's different, but at the same way, it's similar. The one that is missing out of those 3 that I called out is the excuses for payment. There's not really going to be an awful lot you're going to be able to put in there, because I mean, people don't have, I don't have a PO. I don't have a PO system when I'm dealing with kind of the electricity, for instance. I don't say, oh well, you need to give me my PO number because I need to get it approved by my wife or something. So we don't you don't have a lot of those type of things, and where the invoices and the bill is going to be delivered, they will either they're dealing with thousands and thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. So I mean, they have their system where they will either email it to you, or they will post it to you, or it appears on a portal or something like that. But there will be some sort of system that is already in place. So you don't tend to have you don't tend to use the form to remove excuses for them not paying. However, what you can do first of all is you will put the contact information in. Okay, so contact information is still relevant. So you will probably want more than just an email address. You will want the people's houses. Okay, I mean there will be, we won't be at the knocking at the door stage for quite some time, if ever, and hopefully not ever. But you will have somebody's address. Okay, so you have an opportunity to talk to them, or unfortunately to initiate legal proceedings if it ever came to that. But you will have the address, but you will have more basic things like the phone number, so you have numbers to ring. You may give them the opportunity to put more than one phone number. Maybe not everyone has home phone numbers anymore, but you may put the home phone number in there. You may put the work phone number. Whether or not they're going to give it to you, maybe another matter. But whether or not they even have one, maybe another matter. But no harm to put the opportunity to give them in there, because some people will use them. Obviously, you put the mobile number in. And you also put the email address. Now, again, similar to the trade, you're not going to have escalation points. It's not a case of, well, if I can't get the husband, I'm going to escalate to the wife, or the other way around. Or if I can't get the younger fellow with a mobile phone bill, I'm not going to escalate to his parents. So you're probably not going to go down that route. But do put in the contact details and get as many of them as you can, because you may need, if you're doing it with thousands and thousands of people, in some cases you will need them. Okay. You will be putting in things like, again, assessing the risk is in there. And the key one that you're going to be doing when you're doing a consumer form is you're going to be saying, okay, well, what else is in competition for the money? The first thing you're going to find out is, okay, well, what sort of money is coming in? Okay, so what's the monthly salary? Is 1,000 coming in, 2,000, 3,000, after taxes, how much money is left? Okay, so that's going to be the first thing. How much money is coming in? All right. You're then going to be looking at what sort of money is going out. Okay, and the very first question is, okay, well, you have to live somewhere. Where are you living, and what sort of setup do you have? Are you renting, or do you own it? If you own it, is there a mortgage on it? Is there a mortgage on it? If you're living at home with your parents, are you paying rent? In which case, there'll be some questions like that. But they'll also be asking, okay, well, how about other loans? You got other loans, you got a car loan, you got credit cards, you got an overdraft. Childcare, that's a key one, because it's probably the highest after, if you have a mortgage or paying rent, it'll probably be the highest behind it, and may even be higher than it. that'll be a question. Do you have children? Okay, because children they're lovely and all, but they are also in competition for your money. Okay, you will have less money to pay your suppliers if you have children than if you don't. Okay. Because children cost money, okay? And then they'll be saying, okay, right, so you got children, what sort of ages are they? Because if they're at school and potentially they're in free education, the costs are less. But if they're preschool and they're going off to creche, the costs will be higher than they will be maybe when they're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Okay. All right. So those are the two types of things. So there'll be a little bit in terms of kind of the contact details and how do we find you if things go wrong. But a key thing, and you'll know it yourself if you've ever applied for a loan or a credit card, most of the form is going to say, okay, well, what else is there? They'll talk to you briefly about the money coming in, and they'll give you an opportunity to say, okay, well, do you have a second job, or do you have a sideline, or I don't know, are you renting out a property somewhere where you have rental income coming in? They'll give you an opportunity to kind of list out any source of income, but most of the form will be focused on, well, do you have a credit card? Do you have a loan? Do you have a second loan? Do you have a third loan? Do you have children? Are there childcare costs, mortgage, car loan, that kind of stuff? So they will be looking about what's in competition. So those are the types of things. So create the form, and then give a bit of explanation as to why it is you're asking that, regardless, and do call out. I mean, it'll be fairly obvious to me, but if you are doing some of that, do call out. Is it a consumer application form that you're doing, or is it a trade application form? So that's a good idea as to how to do number 2. Any questions on that? Okay. So I'm going to try and keep within time. So I think that the third one's probably a little bit speedier, although the last one will take a little bit of time. So the third question is, describe in detail the steps you would take to improve the levels of cooperation and teamwork with the other departments in your business. Okay. All right. So this is a key thing in working in credit management. Okay. You're going to spend time working with other teams and other departments to try to make things go smoothly, because if things go smoothly, the chance of you getting more on-time payments is significantly higher. Okay. So the first type of department that you might be working with would be marketing. All right. Okay. So marketing will go off. Marketing are involved. I mean, not marketing are. I mean, if I think in my head, marketing is about kind of telling people about the products and telling people about the services, and yeah, that's certainly part of what they do. But they will be also heavily involved in the strategic direction. Okay, we're going to target more younger people. We're going to target. We don't think we're making enough inroads into people over 40. We're going to try that. We're going to go international, so we're going to instead of just kind of selling our product to the Irish, we're now going to sell it to the French as well. So they will be involved in strategic things, and all of these things are possible. All these things can make things work, and they want to do it to grow the company, because that is part of their job. Okay, but there will be challenges that they may come across. So the first thing is to have your communication lines open with marketing. Know who they are, and be meeting with them regularly. So that'll be the first thing that you'd be looking to do. And if they say in one of these meetings, okay, listen, we're going to target maybe younger people, and your experience, or maybe you're working on the consumer kind of side of collections, and your experience maybe kind of, jeepers, it's much easier to talk to people and much easier to get on-time payments from people who are maybe over 30 than maybe it is from people between 20 and 30. I'm not saying it is, but that's just maybe an example that you may have found, and you may not be overly keen on doing it. That's okay. But what you need to do is you need to bring your insights and bring your experience to the table. So you can say, okay, well, is there a way we can do it? I mean, rather than sending emails, could we send, WhatsApp messages if people go over to you? Are there things we can bring in that would allow us to still be successful and still make our metrics, or maybe even improve our metrics, if we go and we start kind of working a bit more with the 20 to 30 age group? Okay, so your aim is not to say no to marketing. Your aim is to say yes. But we would need the following to make this work. We would need the following 2 or 3 things. Okay. But the first thing is build your relationship marketing, get to know who they are, get yourself a monthly meeting. It can be formal or informal, but have some sort of idea as to what sort of direction, particularly this time of year when we're in the early stages of the year. What are the plans for 2026? Okay. Because believe me, they will have plans. Okay. So you want to be involved in that discussion and get some heads up on it, so that if they go ahead with these plans, what is it you're going to need so that you can maintain your metrics or maybe even improve your metrics? Okay. Sales is another department you're going to be working with, okay? And traditionally, the way that people would picture credit working with sales would be that sales bust a gut to get all of the orders in, and then some of them get held at the end because invoices are overdue or credit limits have been breached and things like that. So I mean that's the kind of traditional and maybe the model that we may have seen in the past. Ideally, the way you would do it is you would have the relationship with sales and said, okay, right, so where it's the 1st of February today. What are your key deals that you're looking to get over the line in the month of February? Because they will be planning, okay? There will be an element of surprise, I suppose, in their role, but there will be some planning as well. So we're planning on talking to the following organizations to try to get some orders in. They will, if they share those, you can go off and you can have a look at them and say, okay, these guys are all green because they're a long way off the limit of line of credit, and they're well on top of things in terms of payment. These guys are orange because sometimes they pay late and we're just keeping an eye on them, or they're close to their limit in terms of line of credit. And these guys are red because they're already overdue or they're already over their credit limit. So some action would need to be taken on that. So that is, I mean, build a relationship with sales so that you're talking to them ahead of time. That'll be the first thing, and then the second thing is get an idea on the first of the early days of every month. What is it they're looking to achieve this month, or maybe even further ahead, and how would that be looking from a credit point of view? Operations would be another one. I mean, the way I worked with my operations teams back in the day was they used to have a huddle at maybe 10 o'clock every morning, and I'd actually attend that huddle. Okay, so I'd be listening in. I mean, similar to the sales things, I'd be hearing what was going on and what they were working on and what their priorities were. And it was a bit of there's a bit of quid pro quo about it. I would bring some of my said, right, listen, these are key credit notes that I need to get processed, and I would bring it to their attention early and I'd say, okay, let's not have these. It's not the end of the world if it goes on into week 3 or week 4 of the month, but that has to be done by the end of the month so I can make my targets. I would bring those credit notes to their attention and do it during a quiet period, so I would have their ear and the opportunity for them to address it when they were quiet. In weeks 3 and 4, they tend to get busier, and it wasn't a good time for me to do it. So I mean, you're going to need operations to make sure that orders are processed right first time. Okay, so you will need to work with them on that. You will need them for credit notes as well. All right. So again, have your regular catch-ups, get to know them, get to know what their priorities are, but also don't be afraid to share with them what your priorities are as well. It needs to be a two-way street. Okay. And the last one that you might be working with that I would call out should be service departments. Okay. So there's no point in a company providing brilliant service and, being on the phone with them for half an hour and helping them solve whatever problem they have if just down the hall, there are you guys working in the collections department. So I've been trying to get hold of that chancellor for weeks. And then down the hall, somebody's providing brilliant service for them in one of the service departments. It's not what you want, Okay. That's not what you want. So you need people to deliver. You need people to have some sort of insight as to who your severely overdue accounts are. So whether that be a manual list that they stick up in front of their desk or something maybe a little bit more IT kind of scenario where maybe flags come up in the system. You want to work with the service department so there is some way of them knowing that, oh, hang on, this guy is overdue and Paul in collections has been waiting for him for a long time, so let's send him through to Paul before we give him any good service, so that Paul can sort out the payment, and then he can send him back to us, and then we will sort out whatever query they actually have. Okay. So those are the type of things we'd be looking to do with our colleagues in our company to ensure good flowing service throughout, but also ensuring on-time payment. Any questions on any of that before I move on to the last question? No. Okay, very good. Okay, so the last question on the mock paper is this. So it's one of the longer. Oh no, that's more the instructions are long. So the question is, using specific examples from your own company, describe how you would ensure that a visit to one of your key customers was successful. You can either choose a visit which would involve a financial review with your customer, or a more general visit. Please indicate which option you have chosen. And one, when it says more general visit, I suppose there's two types of general visit. There's one which we're going to cover off in a minute, which is essentially a fact-finding one. But there's also one which is how do things have started going wrong. There's queries all over the place. How do we get them solved? Okay, so there's kind of three types of visits that you could, in theory, embark upon. So I'm not going to cover off financial review meetings in the interest of time, okay? But if if that is something you'd be particularly keen on, and you said, okay, I'd like to describe a financial review meeting, how to do that is covered in pages 8 to 13 of the notes in Module 4. All right. That's where you'd find financial review meetings. Where you would find the information to do the more general ones, they are on pages 12 to 13 of Module 4. So it's towards the beginning. It's 12 to 13 of Module 4. There's also some additional information on pages 3 to 7 as well. Okay. So and just quickly, just if you are noting anything down or just so you have it, in terms of question 3, I don't think I ever told you where to find that information, but the information on how to work with marketing, sales, operations, and so on, that's all on pages 20 to 21 of Module 3. Okay, that's where you'd find that information. All right. But going back to question 4 and the customer visit, so I'm not going to cover off financial review meetings, but they are on pages 8 to 13. In terms of a more general visit, I mean, the key thing you're looking to find out here is how does the process work? Okay, if it's a key customer, if it's a customer that's worthy of a visit, they're probably spending a bit of money. Okay, if they're spending a bit of money, makes it probably a little more likely they might be on the larger side, okay? And on the larger side, there will be deadlines. There will be handovers from one team to another in terms of getting you paid, okay? And there will be deadlines that says, okay, if that's handed over by this date, the invoice will be paid by the end of the month. If it's handed over 2 or 3 days later, it will not be paid at the end of the month. So those are the type of things you want to be finding out, okay? But in general, when you're going for a customer visit, the very first thing is to do your homework, the same way you would if you were making a collections call. Okay, you're going to check. Okay, what's the ledger looking like? Is it up to date, or is it behind? Are there payments that need to be allocated that may bring down the balance? How are they paying? How are they ordering? Okay, are they paying on time? Are they not? Do they order all at once, or is it staggered throughout the year, or staggered throughout the month? Little bit of 5-10 minutes of preparation work beforehand. Maybe a little bit more if you're doing a customer visit, but certainly some initial homework to kind of say, okay, well, what are these guys like? Are they paying on time, or are they not? Are they ordering consistently, or is it kind of fairly sporadic? Is it kind of sudden and doesn't look organized? What is it? Okay. Arrive early, pick up a book, and tell them at reception that you're happy to wait, and then just listen in to kind of what you're hearing. Are you hearing any clues in reception when people stop to talk to reception that all is well with the world, or is everybody giving out? And kind of are you maybe overhearing stuff that maybe is a little bit on the confidential side that things are maybe going wrong? So keep an ear out when you're there. If it is that type of business, and ask, okay, is it possible to have a look around the factory or the warehouse before you start your meeting? And if it's a warehouse, ask yourself, okay, ask them when you get there, okay, where do you keep our goods? Okay, if your goods are buried in the back, and the person, because I'm not really that sure, if you're buried in the back, or maybe they don't know. There's a pretty good chance you're not their number one priority. So again, if you're in competition for money, that's ideally you would be their number one priority, but it's not the end of the world if you're not. But it is useful to know that. Okay. So where do you keep our stock? If it's close to the front and they know immediately, there's a pretty good chance you're key to their success. If you're buried somewhere in the back and they don't even know, and the stock's been there for a long time, you're probably less of a priority for them. Okay. When you do your meeting, what your aim is to do, if it's a fact-finding meeting, you want to kind of go through the process, okay? Maybe starting at the back, okay, and say, right, okay, so, when payments are issued, how often do you do payment runs? Are they weekly, or are they twice monthly, or are they once a month? If you're going to be in a payment run, how soon beforehand would it need to be approved? Because chances are it can't be approved 10 minutes beforehand. So you want to kind of know, okay, is it a day, 2 days, a week? What is it? Okay. And in order to get into that payment run, when would approval need to be made? Can it be made 10 minutes before the cutoff, or does it need to be made a day or two before the cutoff? And work your way backwards. You're going to say, okay, we start with with payment and we work our way backwards to how and get to know the people and can say, okay, so how do you do that? Assuming they're happy enough to show you, ask them to show it on screen. So if they say, well, I work off this Excel file, and you say, oh, jeepers, there's 3 things in that Excel file that we don't put on our invoices, and this is a key customer. Is there a way we can get that information to them nice and easily? Could it be added to the invoice? Should it be added to the invoice? Ask yourself those type of questions. Get to know the process, and get to know all of the steps involved in the process, so that you can ensure that you have things in place at the right time, that they have the right information. The easier you make it for them, the more likely you are to be paid on time. If they're in any way functioning well, if you make it easy for them, you give them all the information, there shouldn't be any issues. Okay. If you're not providing them information, they will say, okay, I better go and get that information. I've got all these ones that are right, and where we do have all the information, I'm going to do them first. Time ticks on, and they never get round to do it, and you miss being in the payment run. Those are the type of things you want to find out. At the end of the meeting, there's a couple of things you do need to do in addition to thanking them. One, you want to send a follow-up email to the relevant person saying to them, okay, this is what we've agreed. And then 2, you want to loop your boss in. Okay, so you've probably been gone for maybe a half day or so. The boss wants to make sure that it's been time well spent. You send a summary to the boss so that you can see some of the good work that you've been doing. Okay, so I'm conscious it's now 11 o'clock, and I want to get on to the main event. There is also query resolution meetings, which I'm not going to have time to cover off now, but you can find those. Again, it's module 4. You're looking at kind of pages 12 to 13, and there's more information in pages 3 to 7. Okay, so that'll give you some idea as to how to cover off a query resolution meeting. And if for some reason you want to cover that off for me separately, I have plenty of time this week. If you want to ping me and talk by email, or even if you want to talk by phone, we can do it. Okay, but just before we get on to the main event, which I know is the real reason that you're all here, are there any questions?
How long do we have to, how many words do we need in those questions? You might have said it already, but sorry if I missed it.
No, I always forget to say it, and somebody usually reminds me. So thank you very much for reminding me. So I would probably be looking for. I mean, if somebody got to 2 pages for one of the longer questions, there's a pretty good chance, unless they're repeating over and over again the same point, there's a pretty good chance they're going to score well. Okay, I'd be kind of looking for in around 2 pages. If you're submitting something that's significantly under 1, unless every word you've written is absolute gold dust, you're probably leaving out stuff. Okay, so right. I'd be looking for really a minimum of 1 just to get to be anywhere close to what we're looking for. 2 it'd be rare that someone would submit 2 and they'd get a bad mark. So I'd probably be looking for that. So minimum 1, 2. Chances are you're gonna be scoring pretty well.
Okay. Great, thank you.
And thanks for reminding me, because I never remember to say it, but somebody usually asks. So thank you. Okay, so we'll go into the real one then. Okay. So give you some pointers. So first of all, the MCQs. So I better just cover that off first. So the multiple choice ones, as Declan said, you're going to get up to an hour to do them. Okay, and there are 50 of them. Okay, some of them may cross over from the mock one. Okay, so there may well be 3, 4, or 5 or so that are pretty much exactly the same. The only thing I'll say to you is just be a little bit careful, okay? We're not trying to trip you up, but we may have written them in slightly different format, okay? So the answers may have slightly changed. So you might see the first couple of words and say, oh, I remember that one, and the answer was A. The answer might be C on this one, okay? We're not trying to trip you up, okay? But just read carefully in case the word not has suddenly appeared in there and you make a mistake there. So on the MCQs, it is just important to say they will come from all over the course, okay? So for the longer questions, you can isolate some modules, and I'll go into that in a minute. But for the longer ones, for the shorter questions, they can come from anywhere in the course. Okay, so you would need to ideally have a good working knowledge of modules 1, 2, 4 in order to do that. But I will tell you, the MCQs are nothing to be frightened of. All right, okay. I probably over the years have maybe had 2 or 3 people who've gotten every single one of them right. And in most groups, most groups, I will get people who get to 36, 37, 38 marks out of a possible 40. So there are 50 there. There's 40 marks for that particular section. We're going to convert it into a mark at a 40. But people getting very, very close to full marks is good. But it is important to say do the whole thing, because I frequently see people and they're flying along, and then we get to the section that's from module 3, and it's clear they didn't like module 3, so they skipped it. And suddenly, having gotten everything right, they suddenly get maybe 8 wrong in a row. So do cover the whole lot. Okay. I think that's all I have to say on the multiple choice ones. So on the longer ones, so first of all, I'll give you the breakdown as to where these questions are going to come from, and then I have some words of wisdom, and then I'll hand you back to Declan, okay, for more words of wisdom. So for the longer questions, so there are 4 of them. You need to do 2, okay? As Declan said, you can do 3 or even 4 if you want, and we will give you the best marks, but you're only required to do 2 out of the 4, okay? So one of the questions, these aren't necessarily going to be in this exact order, but one of the questions is going to come from module 3, okay? And it's going to come from the early part of module 3, all right? So first kind of half of module 3, I have a question for you from there, all right? Okay? There is also a second question, which is going to come from maybe not the same area, but it's also going to come from module 3. And again, it's coming from the first half of module 3. So the first half of module 3, if you really, really like module 3, you could, in theory, get 2 questions out of it. Okay, makes it sound like I was lazy and I didn't get to the end of either of module 3, but I did put. We have 2 questions in there from the early half of module 3. All right, so that's where 2 of them come from. We have a third one, and it's from module 2. Okay. And again, it's the first half of module 2. So the first half of module 2 would get you 1 question. The first half of module 3 will get you 2 more questions. Okay. Okay. So it's just the way it's going to land it, but it's not designed that way, but it's just the way it's going to land it. Okay. All right. And then the final question comes from module 4. And if you were listening a few minutes ago, module 4 was about customer visits. Okay. It is not customer visits, okay? So there could be some MCQ questions on customer visits, but there's no long question on customer visits. So in terms of getting into the nitty-gritty, your query management and financial, which I just gave you guidance as to where to find it, you can forget about that, okay? You can put it away, all right? You're not gonna need it apart from maybe the MCQs, okay? So just to repeat for the longer questions, so there's not specifically a longer question on module 1, although you can certainly bring in stuff from module 1 because all of it is interlinked, but you can bring in stuff from module 1. But the areas to focus on would be the first half of module 2, because that'll get you a question, and the first half of module 3, because that'll get you 2 more questions. And then everything in module 4, which I think from memory is the shortest of the 4, but you can forget about the customer visits part, apart from the MCQs, because it's coming from somewhere else other than that. All right. Now, just my words of wisdom, and then I'll hand you back to Declan. So my words of wisdom, first of all, it's not a scavenger hunt, all right? Okay, so we're not looking for you to say, oh, there we go. There's the section that Paul was talking about, and we copy 2 pages there, and bang, there's 2 pages. Now, Paul, full marks. That's not really going to work, okay? We're looking for you to explain and show that you understand. So you're welcome to use the material, obviously, but do explain it in your own words, okay? I could copy and paste two pages of quantum physics. I know nothing about quantum physics. Okay, I could give you two pages of quantum physics. Doesn't mean I know anything about it. So let's not go down that road. So it's not a scavenger hunt. Don't be doing copying and pasting. Explain things in your own words. Okay, all right. And if you could put examples in, that would be very, very good. You have. Pretend you're going for an interview. If you're going for an interview, they'd say, okay, give me an example of when you dealt with a challenge. Give me an example of when something went wrong. You have those things. So maybe have a little bit of a think back to some of your more recent examples where things went right, or maybe more importantly, where things went wrong. If they link in to some of the notes, then fantastic. You really will be heading for high marks if you put some examples in. Now it's not the assignments. Okay, so don't. You're not trying to get 1,500 words out, okay? You're trying to get maybe more like maybe 800, 900 words out, okay? So it's not the assignments, okay? So don't go writing forever and ever and ever and spend a page and a half on an example. But a quick example would be fantastic, okay? So it's not a scavenger hunt. Do put in the examples. Very, very important. We've dealt with the length, which it's something to do. So just to remind you on the points breakdown, the way it is going to work, just repeat what Declan said. There are 40 marks available for your 50 MCQ questions. Okay, so you're going to get a score out of 40 for them. All right. Then the first long question is worth 30. Okay. So we're going to give you a score out of 30 for that. That gets you to 70. And then the last long question is another 30, which gets you to 100. Okay. We then convert that back into a score out of 70. All right. So we're going to take your exam score. We're going to say, right, you got, say, 90 out of 100. We're going to translate that into a score out of 70. And then we're going to add 10 more marks up to 10 more marks for your first assignment, up to 10 more marks for your second assignment, and then up to 10 marks for the 4 short tests that you did to give you a final score out of 100. And just on that point, very last point I'll make is pretty much everyone is up to date on that. But if you do owe me anything in terms of assignments or short tests, I can still accept them. Okay. Please do not send them to me after the exam, because people have done that before, and it's gonna, oh my God, I'm knee deep in exams, and then I have to go back and try and remember the answers to a short test that was issued in maybe October. So it's not great. But so don't send it to me after the exams, but you can send it to me up to the end of this week, and I will be nice and squeeze it in for you. Okay.
That's great. Thanks, Paul.
Sorry, just one more
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead, Eileen.
I know for Paul's, I've sent all mine off, but I'll ask it in the risk part. We don't actually know. It's a bit unclear as to if we've sent them all off or not. But I'll ask again when we're looking at risk. Sorry.
Okay, well, I'll go through. No, that's fine. The other thing, Paul, that I would reiterate, just that you've challenged me for words of wisdom as well. So the answers that you give to the questions should incorporate the notes that you have received and your own experience. So if you're talking about your own experience, relate your experience to what you covered in the notes. So that's grand. Here is the thing. If you copied the question and pasted it into ChatGPT and get 14 pages of absolute diamond stuff, which is better than I've ever written, we will know, and we will not give you marks. So just telling you. Now, so this is not a ChatGPT exam. So it is based on the notes, and Paul, you'll know straight away after the first sentence, this is a ChatGPT answer. We don't really have an absolute that says 0 marks for ChatGPT, but if you do hit some of the points that are in the notes, we will give you marks for that. If it's something, as I say, straight out of AI, then no, you're not getting marks for that. So just to sort of forewarn you on that one, okay? So that's it, guys. Hopefully you know where to look, you know what to expect, and what I will do is I will now stop the recording.